Welcome back to a very, very special episode of the Baseball America College Baseball Podcast. I'm Jacob Rudner. I'm joined, as always, by Peter Flaherty, and very special, I'm joined by JJ. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. We have yet to have this happen, and we're back to recap Game 1 of the National Title Series. LSU beats Coastal Carolina 1-0. They're on the brink of winning the national title for the second time in 3 years. So much to recap, particularly the excellence that was Kade Anderson, just the third complete game shutout in National Title Series history. He threw 130 pitches, struck out 10, and walked 5. And JJ, I'm just going to jump right in here because the reason that we have you on the show in particular is this tweet right there, where you basically said that you do not have a problem necessarily with Kade Anderson throwing 130 pitches in this game. We would love for you to explain.
Okay, so I don't want to go overboard here, right? I'm not saying guaranteed. There's no concern here at all. I will note, as Virginia Yankee tweeted back at me, and I want to, again, I'm trying to be evidence-based here. MLB's pitch smart limits do say that 120 pitches is their recommended limit for a pitcher between the ages of 19 and 22. So from that standpoint, this was a little bit beyond that. And I do want to note that. And if you said that that is evidence that this is too far, I'm not going to disagree with you, because that is something that has been put together by orthopedists and other experts who have studied this. But the point I was trying to make here, and I've tried to study this for 10 years now, is very often we get into thinking of this, well, no major league pitcher throws 125 pitches anymore, so therefore it must be too risky and it shouldn't happen in college baseball. And the key difference here is major league pitchers don't throw on a 7-day schedule. Kade Anderson and college pitchers do. And in every piece of information I've gathered on this, and a lot of it understandably is anecdotal, when I talk to pitchers and I say pro pitchers, and I say, you pitched in college, now you're pitching in the pros, tell me the difference. And they're like, 5-man rotation is way different than throwing every 7 days. With 7 days, my arm felt incredible. On a 5-day, 5-man rotation, I should say, you're not as fresh. You have to kind of grind through it a little bit more. And the other thing that does stand out, and again, I'm never saying on this that, hey, I'm the expert, just trust me. I'm just saying, when I've studied this and I've tried to gather the pitch count information for basically every first-round college pitcher, and I really kind of was like from 2010 to 2017, I think it was, because you got to give them time then to go to the majors and see what they do. And the pitchers who had gone over 120 in games had better outcomes than the pitchers who didn't, who were first-round picks, I should say. I was trying to select from a very similar cohort, which is you must be a first-round college Division I pitcher to fit in this study. And in that, and again, there are some very good pitchers who didn't. Aaron Nola was a great college pitcher, at one of the schools we're talking about here, but he never topped 120 in a game. Okay, and he's been really good. He's been really durable. So has Garrett Cole. So there have been also guys who did go beyond that. There are guys who are still pitching, in year 12 of their pro major league careers who went beyond that. So I don't want to say that I'm going too far here. I'm not saying there's nothing to worry about here, but as I wrote when Paul Skeens went 124 in Omaha, I cannot find any evidence that on a 7-day schedule, right? I said 7 days rest in the tweet. I should have said 7-day schedule, but on a 7-day schedule, it's hard to say that, this is terrible for him. I just want to say, if someone has that evidence, I haven't found it.
One thing I thought was interesting, just in listening to Jay Johnson talk after the game as well, was he knows the person, and they have actually had experiences so far this year where they've been able to push Kade Anderson well over 100 pitches. One of the things that he said that he was looking at was the stuff quality and the level of stress innings towards the end of the game. Kade Anderson was actually more efficient in the final 3 innings of the game than he was at the beginning. And this right here was pitch number 120 of the game. 82-mile-per-hour curveball with over 3,000 RPM. 5 pitches later, I just didn't get a screenshot of it. He ripped the same velocity curveball at 3,200 RPM. How much does that matter, JJ?
It absolutely is part of what you're paying attention to, right? Like Jacob Mizorowski in the big leagues threw yesterday. And when he came out for the 7th after a long 20-minute top of the inning, or I guess it would be a top of the inning, his velo was down 3 miles an hour right away. And it's like, okay, that's probably the time, that's the time. But the same time, I would say, if you are seeing a guy who's not laboring, it's a minor factor in this. I would say it's more of, if you see that, again, if someone says, oh, he looks free and easy, but he was at 155 pitches. Well, I don't care if he looked free and easy. He's at 155 pitches. But I will say that we get more into trouble, I think, in college baseball when it's like, yeah, but he really wanted, I know he pitched on Friday in the first game of the regional, but he really wanted to be out there for the, to finish it off. That's more, to me, that's more dangerous, because we do have plenty of evidence that pitchers coming on an unusual schedule for them on less rest are in more danger. That's something that is pretty indisputable. That's not something that we were talking about here. We're talking about a guy who was cruising. And again, the other part of it is I don't want to say that, this absolves everything, but you are playing to win these games. These games really matter. Like I see Paulino89 says, any of you remember a legendary pitching performance CWS? That's one of them. That goes right there. That goes into that group, right? I would say Paul Skeens versus Rhett Lauder just a couple of years ago, when you say legendary pitching performances, we had 2 in the same game in that game. And basically, those guys were like, at some point, you're going to have to pull us, and then this game can be settled, because it's going to be 0-0 until you get to that point.
And also Ty Floyd that same year, game 1 of the CWS finals, 8 innings with 17 Ks against Florida. And I think in that outing, he threw 120 plus pitches as well. So ironically enough, we're talking all LSU here in the last
Kumar Rocker. Kumar Rocker had a great season. I want to give a non LSU answer. Kumar Rocker had an incredible CWS and okay. If we want to go to an example the other way, when you talk about you play to win the games, and now me and my names, Oregon State 2017, help me, the lefty who's now in the Reds organization. I just blanked on his name, but the freshman, I'm Googling to get it, because because me and names at this point, that is the part of my brain that unfortunately is utterly broken. But I'll get it. But he came back on short rest. Kevin Abel came back on short rest. I thought he was going to pitch an inning or 2, and they just kept him out there. And I will say, if you want the cautionary tales, came back on short rest. And I would say Kevin Abel's never been the same after that. He did win a ring, but he's never been it would be hard to say that he then blew out and he struggled to regain that stuff that he had as a freshman. But that was another legendary CWS appearance.
We can also look at a guy like Quinn Matthews from 2023, who came to Omaha and threw a whole bunch of pitches and has gone on to be successful, was our minor league pitcher of the year in 2024. So all worked out after a lot of pitches. Let me float one more question to you, JJ, before you get out of here. From Hustle Out the Box, does this make him a clear 1-1 now? We can actually go around the room here. For me, yes. JJ?
Clear, no. Possible, absolutely.
Clear 1-1 candidate, yes.
Yes.
There isn't going to be a clear 1-1, I don't think, even until the draft begins. Until the 1-1 selection is made, I don't think there's a clear 1-1 in this class.
because let's go back around on this. I have a follow-up question to that that's kind of the same way, because I like what Peter said there. Part of this is going to be this year, I think, is as in most years where there's not a clear 1-1. If you have 3 guys that you think are very similar in talent, and one of them will sign with you for $1.5 million less than the other 2, you may go that way. So there's a little bit of financial component too. But okay, let's ask it this way. Is he the clear 1-1 starting pitcher now? And I'll go to Peter there first, because Peter's been saying this for, I feel like, about 2.5 months now.
Yes, set it and forget it. No doubt in my mind.
What about
It's
you,
that
Jake?
simple for me.
So there you have it. I mean, and one more thing here, JJ. I'm gonna keep you on the clock. Let's talk about the 2026 draft for a second, because the public doesn't have access to this. But during the game, you sent a Slack message to all of us over at Baseball America, wondering if Cameron Fluki, who was outstanding tonight, 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts, just wasn't better than Kade Anderson. Is he a first rounder next year? And I'm curious what you say when you see things like that. That's the fastball quality for you.
I would be, at this point, again, we are so far from that draft, but I would say it would surprise me at this point if he doesn't enter next year considered a likely first rounder, right? Because you have the stuff. And I would say the most important part is you have the stuff combined with the absolute quality of pitching that he's done as well. Like, if you have one or the other, then it gets a little tougher. But when you have both, like, this is the ace of a team that is in the CWS finals, and he just does it time after time. And then you say, okay, well, how's the stuff? Stuff's really good. Then what are you? I don't like. I would struggle to say what's missing there. I don't think any of us have broken them down to that level yet, because it's next year's draft. But I mean, what do you think, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, he certainly has first round upside. What we saw tonight on the biggest stage in college baseball is arguably the best start in his career, just all things considered. He looks the part, 6'5", 6'6", high-waisted kid. Fastball sat in the mid-to-upper 90s, trademark plus carry through the zone, the low 80s, the high 70s, low 80s curveballs, flash depth with some teeth to it. That looks to be his bread and butter secondary offering. And he also mixes in a slider and changeup that have both flashed. So, I mean, it's a no-doubt starter profile with some projection remaining. There's really loud now stuff. He's taken a huge step forward under pitching coach Matt Williams, which you could say the same for the entire Coastal Carolina pitching staff. But he's just on this really impressive upward trajectory. And it's, you kind of start to bucket these guys a little bit into how many buckets they fall into. At least that's what I kind of like to do when talking about pitchers and really just prospects in general. But, there's big time stuff. There's projectability remaining, and the strikes are there. So, I mean, he's 3 for 3. And it feels kind of crazy to say that he might even upstage what he's done this year in 2026. So I think he certainly has, legitimate first round upside.
One thing I'll add on that, Jay Johnson, who I think has a pretty decent eye for talent, said in his post-game press conference that he thinks Cameron Fluki belongs in the first round next year. So yes, very early, but certainly an impressive performance from the sophomore at Coastal Carolina, big whippy long starting pitcher who was outstanding. JJ, any final thoughts before we let you out of here?
So I will kind of segue it back into the game and looking ahead. Again, I would love to see 3 games just from a standpoint as a college baseball fan. I did feel like, though, if Coastal's going to pull the upset, it's always going to be tough today, because you're facing, we just said, is Kade Anderson the 1-1 pick in the draft? You're facing 100% an ace. But I kind of felt like Fluky versus Anderson, you had that chance that you could get the W today. How much tougher does the task become now? Because I do feel like the LSU, as good as Coastal's been, I feel like LSU's pitching depth is better.
Well, they are going to have to deal with Anthony Iansson tomorrow, which is not a dramatically easier task than having to manage Kade Anderson. We're talking about arguably the number 1 and somewhere between 2 and 5 strikeout artists in college baseball back to back. And by the way, let me add, it's not easy for LSU tomorrow either. Jacob Morrison has been one of the best pitchers in the country. One stat that I like to go back to, he's the only pitcher besides Paul Skeens in the last 5 years to have 10 or more outings of 6 or more innings with 1 or fewer runs allowed. So we're not talking about some slouch who's going to go out there for Coastal Carolina tomorrow. We also know that Coastal does a really good job of spraying the gaps, which is important in this ballpark right here in particular. So no, the series is not done, but I do agree with you, JJ, that the Tigers are very, very much in the driver's seat after a very exciting game 1. JJ, we thank you for joining us. This was a lot of fun. First time. Hopefully we'll have you back here before the end of the College World Series. And now Peter and I are going to take on the mantle. So thank you, JJ.
Adios, y'all.
All righty, Pete. We got a lot to talk about. This was a truly spectacular day, and we just spent a lot of time breaking down Kade Anderson. The place I want to start with you, though, is just the overall competitiveness of this game. I think you'll agree with me. Cameron Fluki was outstanding, and he's going to get overshadowed because of what Kade Anderson did, and rightfully so. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be overshadowed, but that was a really impressive game for somebody who has more collegiate eligibility left, who will be back in this game next year. Just what were your takeaways from Cameron Fluki? I want him to get his due shine, in a night where it's easy to lose him.
Yeah, and I'm happy we're doing so because that was, you and I had talked about it off air. Like he almost went punch for punch and really did go punch for punch with Kade Anderson. And again, we talked about with JJ, in the biggest stage in college baseball, he went out there and turned in one of, if not the best starts in his college career. And I'm already really excited to watch him next year because this was the last we saw of him in 25. But, the fastball is for me, it's a plus pitch. It's into the mid to upper 90s with big time ride through the zone, particularly in the top half. Snapped off a few bigger curveballs that were effective, and then he mixed in a shorter slider that was distinct in shape. The changeup at times this year has flashed. He's this projectable, high-waisted kid at 6'6". The strikes are there, and I think not only are the strikes there, and this is kind of an overarching theme with the Coastal Carolina pitching staff in general, but especially tonight with Fluki, is the quality of strikes. Like he wasn't just kind of throwing get me over pitches in the heart of the zone. He was staying off the barrel, avoiding hard contact, consistently getting his heater above the barrel of opposing hitters. It was just really, really impressive to me because it's an LSU lineup that can really swing it top to bottom. It's a deep group. It's a talented group. And he went out there and kept Coastal in the game for the entirety of it. So my hat's off to him. And then also Dominic Carbone in relief of him, fired 2 shutout innings. It was kind of a trademark Coastal pitching performance that we've become used to, but they unfortunately ran into the buzzsaw that is Kade Anderson.
Yeah, sure did. If you are watching us live on YouTube right now, first of all, thank you. It's nice of you to join us 11:12 p.m. on the East Coast. We know it's late for a lot of you, but you have turned out to talk about college baseball, and that's exactly what I wanted to bring up here. We want to talk with you about college baseball. If you have a comment or a question, a thought that you want to have featured on our show, kind of like this one from Mark, can Milam play shortstop at the pro level? We're going to talk about that here in a second. Throw it on into the comment section and we will get to you. Like Mr. Egg, how dare y'all ignore Mr. Egg? We're not ignoring you, Mr. Egg. We're just trying to work our way down the list. We're going to get back to it. And like we're going to do right here. Mark, again, can Milam play shortstop at the pro level? Tonight was pretty impressive. And I think actually that's kind of a theme of this game. LSU's defense deserves its shine as well. It was outstanding. Different Mark said, I just know we saw one heck of a pitching performance by both teams. LSU defense was great and won the game. It definitely did. Pete, do you have any thoughts on this? Can Milam play shortstop at the next level?
Yes. I mean, I'm more convinced now than I was coming into this year. I still think long-term, he probably settles in at second base where he's an advanced defender, and he's an advanced defender collegiately at shortstop as well. The actions and instincts are really impressive. There's kind of an appealing, smoothness or suave, as I like to call it, to his game. He's got really good hands. And again, he can pick it over there. He's made impressive plays all throughout the year, especially during the College World Series. We saw it again tonight. I'm more optimistic again, as I began with, that he could I think he'll get a chance to prove himself and a chance to stick there once pro ball starts. I don't think they're going to move him off the position completely, but I think that when all is said and done, like if you're talking about him as a big leaguer, it's probably at second base, but that's not a knock on him. I think he's an advanced defender. I think he's got an advanced defensive package. He's a fun little player.
I also want to talk about Michael Brazwell here for a second. Not necessarily having the best year with the stick, hitting right around that Mendoza line, and it's been a tough go in the postseason. But let me tell you, I don't know, Pete, that I've seen a whole lot of defensive performances, especially from somebody who plays a position like third base, that have been as impactful as what Michael Brazwell was able to do tonight. Just to go through the scorecard. And by the way, for those of you who are wondering why I keep looking down to my left, looking at the scorebook here, just going through all the plays. Michael Brazwell was outstanding. First inning, he recorded the first out and the second out on 5-3 plays. Then you go down deeper into the game, and the one that stands out to me the most, Peter, and I'm curious if you agree, in the seventh inning, Ty Dooley dropped down a sacrifice bunt after a leadoff single from Dean Mijos, and he gets the out on just a crazy angled throw. We're talking about going right over the shoulder, the inside shoulder of the runner to record the out. I was blown away by his defense tonight. You can say what you will if you're an LSU fan about the bat and how that might have impacted things throughout the season. I don't care. Tonight was unbelievable. Amazing glove, great performance. What did you think?
So when you're going tough at the plate, no one feels it more than the kid and the hitter himself. Like, make no mistake about it. He's feeling it, and he's probably pressing a little bit to no fault of his own. It's part of the game. But it's like, when you're going tough at the plate, how can you find a way to still impact the game, help your team win, contribute, I guess, for lack of a better word. And he showed exactly how tonight, and you laid it out perfectly. He made that sensational play. But he also made a handful of others that I think were huge. On when Sebastian Alexander slid headfirst into third when he was attempting to steal, he beat the throw, but he slid through the bag. Brazwell didn't bail out or give up on the play. He had enough baseball sense and wherewithal to stick with the tag, hold the tag on him, ended up tagging him out, getting out of a key spot. So, I mean, it's like you look at the box score and you see a quiet day. You see whatever it was, 0 for 3 with a K. But he was a huge reason as to why LSU right now is feeling really good about themselves after a 1-0 win, because I'm not sure without his defense over there, and especially those couple of plays he made, the play that you referenced on the crazy angle from which he threw, and then holding the tag and sticking the tag on Sebastian Alexander. I'm not sure if they're having that same conversation. So I give an immense amount of credit to him, because when you're going tough like that at the plate, it can feel like everything's closing in on you. You press on both sides of the baseball. You kind of let it carry over, to the defensive side of things. It's been anything but with him. So I've been really, really impressed just with his resolve and maturity.
One other play that I was remiss not to mention here, in the 9th inning, he made a play ranging glove side for the second out of the inning that arguably wasn't even necessarily his ball. It was just hit so hard, and he was moving well, and he got to it, made a great throw, just threw an absolute strike across the diamond to get a critical second out, especially with Kade Anderson's pitch count climbing as high as it did. Let's look at this here from David. How do the high winds and the shadows impact a coach's game plan and or pitching strategy? Cheers to Brazwell as well at third base with the hot fire glove. Second part of that statement, absolutely. We just talked about it. Elite glove performance tonight from Michael Brazwell. With the wind, to be perfectly honest with you, David, I don't know that it terribly impacts the strategy. I think that it makes a bigger difference in terms of how coaches are going to talk to and prepare their fielders, like the outfield. I know that Jay Johnson tonight was talking about how he was having conversations with his outfielders to pay attention to the direction of the wind, because it did switch in the 3rd inning, and that makes a big difference, obviously, with ball flights and how things are going to perform and how fielders need to react. That's obviously a big deal, and it matters. But in terms of the offensive approach, it really doesn't have a terribly large impact. I think for these guys, the instructions in this big, deep ballpark, which I'll move over, this big, deep ballpark, it's really, really hard to hit the ball out here, even on a day where the wind is a little bit more neutral. Sunny days, we tend to see the wind whip in. But the reality is this place plays deep. And so coaches are always coaching up their guys to play line drives. They want to play the gaps. Low and hard is the way to go in Omaha. And we saw that tonight from a guy like Stephen Milam, who Didn't necessarily, not everybody had a great game, but he had a game where he did enough. So that is kind of the instruction. It doesn't change the game plan out here. The coaches know what they're getting into. But good question. Really good question. Let's keep going here, Pete. Who going to? I'm assuming that you're talking about.
I think that looks like who's going number 2 in the draft. Dude, I don't know. If you know, let me know, because I don't think anyone has a clue what's going to happen at the top. So
maybe a high school shortstop.
Kade Anderson, it could be anyone, and it's the Angels that are picking.
Liam Doyle, he could be in the big leagues tomorrow if he goes to the Angels. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. A high school shortstop, although that doesn't feel like an Angels pick to me if I had to be a betting man and make a projection. But we don't know. And if you're referring to who's going to start game 2, which is also equally possible, a little bit vague there, Daniel. Get back in here and maybe clarify that. But if you're talking about who's going to pitch tomorrow, it's going to be Anthony Iansson against Jacob Morrison, which is an absolutely electric matchup. Louisiana Focus says MLB pitchers are a lot older too. Sometimes that is sometimes true. Paul Skeens is a young guy. He made his debut pretty quick. Liam Doyle, if he goes to the Angels, I would be willing to bet money that he'll be in the major leagues at some point this season, and he's pretty young. But yeah, for the most part, that is true, especially guys who go to college. That is a good point. Let's see. Do we have any other questions that we want to answer here pressingly before we start talking about game 2? I think this is a good point from Richard. LSU is a totally different team than 2023. Brazwell has been amazing defensively. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think that anytime that you have Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens on the same team and then don't have them on the next team, you are bound to be quite different. This LSU team is really good. And then remember, Peter, we got called out. We don't want to ignore Mr. Egg here. So let's answer this one before we move on. Where does Kase Evans land in the 2027 draft rankings? You and I have actually gone through this repeatedly. We had a very lengthy conversation about 2027. Where does he shake out now? We don't necessarily need to go back to our old rankings. Based on performance, has he moved up the board for you?
So he 100% has. So going back to our initial top 50, we had him in a prominent spot already at number 9. So I guess in a word, he ranks very high, but I think he's only helped his cause, for me at least. And I'm not sure where you're at. We're usually pretty much in lockstep with a lot of things. So I think you probably feel the same, but he's shown to me that it's going to be a fairly seamless transition into the weekend rotation for him next year, assuming that's what happens. I'd be a little surprised if, Kase Evans isn't starting on Fridays or Saturdays or at any point on the weekend for LSU. I have a decent amount of confidence in him being able to succeed in that type of role. So I'd say comfortably in the top 10 college guys for 2027.
Yeah.
But if you want to get really bullish on it and argue him being in the top 5 in the class of college guys, I could also see that. But for me, just off rip here, no doubt top 10 college guy for me. I think SP1 is clearly Dax Whitney.
Yep.
Not to open the 2027 wormhole, but like Jack Oman, I would still perhaps put above Kase Evans. If you're not familiar with Jack Oman, get familiar.
The Ivy League monster, baby.
Yep. And he's a stud, and I give him a ton of credit. The transfer portal window still closed in a couple of weeks, but so far he's staying put. But
and
yeah,
the intel suggests that he will, by the way. I'm going to interrupt you there. The intel suggests that Jack Oman will remain at Yale next year. And I'm going to add one more thing here, Peter, before I let you keep talking. He's going to be a two-way player next year too.
Man, we could do it like 2 hours on Jack Oman. But yeah, Kase Evans is in a prominent spot now, and he'll continue to be on all of our future updates.
Yeah, I mean, you asked my opinion. Of course, Peter and I are on the same page. Let's run through a couple comments here from Uncle Ted. Comment not needed. Andrew Fisher, dope. Yes, agreed. Boston Smith, dope. We named him an All-American. We agree with that too. Kyson Witherspoon, also awesome. He was also an All-American. Uncle Ted is on fire. Question from Hustle Out the Box. Could we all agree if Coastal Carolina can somehow manage to make this a bullpen game, they have the advantage? I'm going to disagree with you there, Hustle Out the Box. I actually think because of what Kade Anderson did tonight, if Coastal Carolina can make this a bullpen game tomorrow, something has gone wrong. You have Jacob Morrison out there. I think that's a big deal. You have Anthony Iansson on the other side. If you can push him out of the game, Does it favor you? Maybe, but we've also seen this LSU bullpen be really, really good. Kase Evans didn't pitch tonight. I mean, Chase Short, nobody pitched tonight. I don't know why I'm going through names. Kade Anderson was the only guy who came out and pitched. Everybody's rested. They had 2 days off before the national championship as well. So there isn't an arm in that bullpen that's not available tomorrow. I tell you that the only LSU pitcher who is not a green light for game 2 is Kade Anderson. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that LSU's in really good shape no matter how you cut it. And like we talked about on our College World Series final preview podcast, Kade Anderson was the key. If he was able to pitch as deep into the game as we saw him go tonight, we had a feeling that it was going to be really hard to beat LSU, because if it became a bullpen game, they would be in really good shape to be able to handle that. So my answer hasn't changed since before the series. I think that if it becomes a bullpen game, LSU is still in the driver's seat. Do I think that making things a little bit dirty could help Coastal Carolina? Of course. You know, you're down 1-0 and now you can't lose a game. You got to win the next 2, which, by the way, I will add, history, their own history, kind of favors them here. In 2016, LSU was shut out in game 1 of the College World Series by a Jay Johnson coach team and then won the next 2 games to win the national title. Could that happen again? Maybe. I wouldn't rule it out necessarily. We have gushed over this Coastal Carolina pitching staff. It's excellent. That lineup, like I've said repeatedly throughout the postseason, is built for this ballpark. But I really like where LSU stands going into tomorrow because of stuff like this. Everybody is available. S. Young points that out and is correct. Peter.
Except Gavin Guidry. He's not going to throw.
No.
But I see what he's saying.
Yes, the point is true. $1 million idea, execution there, not great. Let's let him redeem himself here. S. Young, boom. LSU has so many more bullpen pitchers than Coastal. It's not even close. Again, I don't know about that.
No, it's not. Yeah.
You know, you go, Pete. You go.
I see the chat tonight. If we were to combine everyone's thoughts, I see where everyone's headed. Like we're so close to crossing the goal line. Coastal has their 4 horsemen. They used one of them tonight, Tom Carbone. They have 3 others that weren't used: Ryan Lynch, Matt Potok, and Hayden Johnson. You assume they're going to get some length out of Jacob Morrison unless things, really go haywire. I'd be surprised to see him go less than 6, and that might even be conservative. So they're gonna go, chips on the table tomorrow. And then if they were to somehow force us to a 3rd game, I think anything's on the table for that one. But I think oh man, it is tough to say who has the advantage. Like you almost call it a draw if you take if you take Coastal's top 4 versus LSU's top 4 and you throw prospect status out the window and you just talk about it from a performance standpoint, it really is a toss up. So I think they can go toe to toe with each other from a bullpen standpoint.
I like what Louisiana Focus says here. LSU has a better pen than Coastal Carolina. Plus, LSU's hitters would hit the Coastal Carolina pen better than the Coastal Carolina hitters would hit the LSU pen. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that it's like Peter said. I think it's a little bit more of a draw. But I actually, one thing I will slightly agree with is I do think that LSU's hitters are better suited to deal with Coastal Carolina's bullpen than maybe Coastal Carolina's hitters are to deal with LSU's bullpen. And that's maybe just a matter of LSU has a little bit more power. They can do a little bit more damage with one swing. We saw tonight, guys like Steven Milan. I mean, the wind here was unreal tonight. It was whipping in super hard, and then it changed in the 3rd inning to be a little bit more right to left, still batting balls down. And Milan was able to get a ball to the wall, which I didn't even think would be possible tonight. So for that reason, I kind of agree with you there, LSU Focus. But still, I think it's a little bit more of a draw. Let's go back to Mr. Egg here, Peter. I like this question a lot. You will too. What's the MLB profile on a guy like Curiel? Does he get to play center field? Does a guy with limited power go top 10 next year? Let me get ahead of whatever you're about to say here. First of all, we love Derek Curiel. You're looking at 2. We might be the biggest 2 Derek Curiel fans when it comes to the draft conversation, in the world right now. We love him. Yes, I do think he'll be able to play center field and will be able to do that as soon as next year. The other thing is, I think he's going to develop into more power. I see a guy who has pop in a bat that maybe didn't necessarily show up by the numbers, but I believe it's 7 home runs and how many doubles, Pete? Are you able to pull it up real quick? How many doubles?
I can't pull it up very quick. Doubles wise for Curiel this year, he had 20.
And why don't you analyze that? I'm going to pull up some batted ball numbers here.
Yeah. So, I mean, for Curiel, he's going to have to grow into more power and impact, first of all. But from a defensive standpoint, it seems like a pretty natural slide over to center field. Just with the departure of Chris Stanfield, I think that's probably, that's been the plan all along. And, I think that he'll man center next year for the Tigers. Top 10 overall pick. You could maybe stick a ceiling I guess you could stick a top 10 overall ceiling on Curiel. For me right now, that's a little bullish. He's very much a power over hit type of profile, but now the bat to ball skills with him are plus. Like, he made contact in the zone at a 95% clip this year. Made just contact in general at an 86% clip, and he chased at a sub 20% clip, all of which are really, really impressive marks. Now, where he lacks is his impact, but you kind of look at the body and you look at the frame and you can kind of see an easy 10, 15 plus pounds that you can add there. So for me, he's going to need to drive the baseball more and kind of step on baseballs for me to be convicted on sticking a top 10 label on him. But for me right now, he certainly fits in that first round bucket. But he does have that type of upside. It's a pretty impressive, and just like from a hitability standpoint, it's just really polished and kind of wise beyond his years. We've seen him take so many high quality at bats and professional ABs throughout this spring. So I think we're going to see a little bit of an improvement in the impact department come next year. But he had 29 extra base hits this spring, so one of the better freshmen in the country.
Is it good for a hitter of his age, in your opinion, to be a little bit more on the passive side? I mean, you look at some of the rate stats here, swing percentage is just 34%. That's low. The impact numbers are great. You mentioned how well he hit the ball, and he's obviously an excellent hitter when it comes to pitches in the zone. But I would say that's kind of a passive number, is it not?
Yeah. So, I mean, oh man, this is kind of going to be like comparing, I guess, maybe not apples to apples. But like with AJ Grassi is another guy who like is a 26 eligible outfielder. Granted, the offensive profiles are different, but like one area for him that he could improve upon that would only enhance his offensive ceiling is if he starts jumping on pitches like in his go zone, nitro zone, whatever you want to call it, more. And you could say the same with Curiel. I think his hard swing percentage, which is his swing percentage on pitches in the heart of the strike zone, so like middle third, whatever you want to call it, it was just a tick above 55%. So, I mean, if he starts getting a little bit more aggressive, like you said, especially on pitches he knows he can do damage against, I find it hard to believe that it's going to do anything but just improve his offensive profile, at least just from a statistical standpoint.
Hustle out the box. Follow-up question on that. If we see, say, 15 plus home runs next year with another 20 doubles, is that enough power projection to get him into that first half of the first round? Yes. I would say very simply yes to that question.
Yeah. I could see it.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we got, if you're on the broadcast, we have a ton of you on here still. Throw a comment in here. We're having an awesome time talking with everybody. Yeah. Pete, while we wait for more of these comments to flood in, and we got a lot more here in the queue that we're going to get back to, but I want to have a conversation just with you for a second. Tomorrow's a big day. And I really do believe, like I said a second ago, that LSU comes out on top. We talked about that with JJ. He seems to agree. You nod your head as if you agree. Anthony Iansson versus Jacob Morrison, another electric pitching outing. What does Coastal need to do for you in order to keep this alive?
Man, well, I mean, simple answer is putting a couple runs on the board would really help their cause. But, they had their hands full tonight with Kade Anderson, and they're going to have their hands just as full tomorrow night with Anthony Iansson. It's a distinct and different look from the right side, but, he's going to be commanding the strike zone at a high level. He's going to be in and around the zone with his entire arsenal. Fastball in the mid-90s with some carry in the top half of the zone. The curveball and slider have both taken a real step forward this spring at LSU. He's just flourished in Baton Rouge. So, they've got their work cut out for them again, but I think that there's no other guy that they'd rather hand the ball to than Jacob Morrison for their counterpunch. And he's been a big game pitcher for him all year. Just this big imposing figure at 6'8". And I think that they feel really confident they can get a quality outing out of him and scratch across a few runs and send this thing to game 3.
You want to talk about something cool here, Pete? You want to break from the college game kind of for a second? Chase Burns headed to the big leagues, making a start Tuesday against the Yankees. How cool is that? I
saw that. I'm fired up. Chase Burns has been appointment television since he was a freaking freshman at Tennessee, and it's no different with him getting called up to the big league. So I will be absolutely tuning in.
Let's go back to the comments here. Mr. Egg, another good one. Hate to keep talking about LSU since Coastal really is awesome. True. Bodine seems like an MLB guy. What's he like as a hitter, as a pro? Seems like defensively he can cut it. I'm going to reverse your question and talk about the easiest part of this first. Defensively, he more than cuts it. I would argue, and Pete can correct me if I'm wrong here, but he and I are typically marching in lockstep. For my money, the best defensive catcher in college baseball right now. I mean, the ability to receive it, to steal strikes, is kind of unparalleled at this point. He does an amazing job managing this pitching staff, and in my opinion, has made these guys look even better than they already are. Jacob Morrison has said repeatedly that he knows that he has a wider zone when Bodine's behind the plate, and you can kind of steal some edges a little bit because he's just so elite. The bat is a little bit more interesting. There's not as much pop as some of these other catchers who have a chance to go at the top of the draft. The numbers from this year are not necessarily mind-blowing. 90.8, basically we'll call that 91 mile per hour average exit velocity and 104 miles per hour 90th percentile with metal. Not necessarily great there. Pete, what do you see there? But he is great when it comes to in-zone hitting, 96% contact rate when pitches are in the zone. So the feel for the barrel is there. The pop, not so much.
Yeah, so starting defensively, for my money's worth, he's the best receiver in this year's college class. I think that's a cold take. Best overall defender is probably Luke Stevenson from North Carolina. But, going back to Bodine, like the receiving skills and hands behind the plate are exceptional. The strikes that he's stealing, when I go on to Synergy and some of the graphics that I see, the called strikes that he's able to get are unbelievable. Like he's getting balls that are 3-4 balls off the plate called as strikes. Obviously, that probably won't be the case in pro ball because college umpiring is college umpiring, not to go off on that tangent, but he's an exceptional receiver. The actions and footwork behind the plate are really sound and compact and advanced. And the arm is above average, but it is unbelievably accurate. His throws are consistently, seeds and on the money down to second. And then at the plate, he's very much a hit over power guy. That's not really a secret. That's been the read on Bodine now for, the entirety of his college career, really. But the contact skills, as Jacob referenced, are exceptional. He's got an advanced feel for the barrel from both sides of the plate. He sprays line drives from foul line to foul line. And, it's more extra base hit power than home run power, but he's not, totally anemic from that standpoint. He's one of very few college hitters that I feel very comfortable stamping a plus hit tool grade on at this point. So he's kind of long been a slam dunk first rounder for me. And I think that's kind of the direction in which he's headed right now.
For me, though, and I just want to clarify, Luke Stevenson is my SP. Luke Stevenson is my number one catcher in this draft. I've loved Luke Stevenson since before the year started. But as Peter said, kind of an artful receiver, Kade Bodine is. Let's talk one more draft question. We got a lot of awesome draft questions tonight, and I'm really loving this. So if you're hanging out with us late at night and you want to talk about draft, throw it in the comments. We love to answer your question. From Nolan. Ethan Frey, a top 5 round pick to y'all. Been cold in Omaha, but an exceptional year. Yes, an exceptional year. Probably not for me on the top 5 rounds, but maybe close. Pete?
Yeah, you could maybe call him the most underrated piece of the LSU puzzle. Him and Jake Brown to me, though Jake Brown's a better and will be a more prominent pro prospect come 26 when he's draft eligible. But yeah, Ethan Frey has had a breakout campaign. He's swung the bat well in the postseason, but top 5 rounds is a little bit rich for me. I think he fits more in that 7 to 10 round bucket. But yeah, no, he certainly improved his stock this year.
All righty. We got more here. Let's see. Going back through, quick comment. Patrick, I hope Aaron Beday becomes as good or better than this Bodine kid. Maybe. Maybe. We'll see. It's hard. It's a hard comp you're making there. I think Bodine's kind of in a defensive category of very few when it comes to college catchers, but we will see.
He won't ever have the contact skills of Bodine, so you can write that off.
Yeah, here's a good point.
Standpoint. Not to be harsh, but
here's a good point from Hustle Out the Box, Pete. Hopefully the art of framing doesn't disappear with the threat of an automated strike zone. Let me say this. I actually, tonight, while I was sitting here watching this game, I said to the person who was sitting next to me in the press box that I thought that it would be a real shame if they got rid of the human strike zone in college, because I think about 75% of the in-game fan experience who are here in person is yelling at umpires when you disagree with a call, even if you're totally wrong. Most of the time, quite frankly, if you're listening to this and you were at the game tonight and you're an LSU fan, a lot of calls that there were, some moans and groans about, they were mostly correct. Tonight was actually an excellently called strike zone. But would you have the same amount of fun if you didn't get to yell at the umpires? I think not. So for the fans' sake, you better hope that doesn't go away. Let's think. Okay, Mr. Egg again. Another draft question. What's Dickinson's draft profile? Watching him every day screams everyday second baseman for 10 years in MLB. Pete, you have actually been kind of a quiet high guy on Daniel Dickinson, and this dates back to when he entered the portal. You ranked him quite highly as a portal prospect. What are your thoughts on him now?
Yeah, I mean, he had a good year, obviously, and is currently in the midst of a productive season with LSU. I'm just going to pull up the exact numbers on him, but he's hitting over 310 or right at 310, I think, with more walks than strikeouts. I think he's more of a hit over power profile guy, which, you can kind of say that about a lot of these folks, but, there's a little bit of a lag in the impact department, but I have been impressed with Dickinson's hit ability. The approach is sound. The bat to ball skills with him have long been plus. So, and as Mr. Egg kind of alluded to in his question, he's kind of this steady Eddie type over at second base. I think you can feel pretty confident and safe plugging him into the 4-hole every day. So it's a sneaky kind of appealing offensive profile. For me, he has a chance to be, maybe top 2 round upside. He certainly fits in that 2nd to 4th round bucket. But he's kind of a skills over tools type of player, is what I would say, with, kind of a solid approach. There's a little bit of thump to the pull side. There's just kind of an appealing blend of just baseball skills, you could call it.
No doubt about that. Alrighty, Pete. We've been live on the internet for almost 50 minutes now, and this is going to be my final warning. For those of you who are still watching, if you want to jump in and throw another comment in, we're gonna tighten it up here a little bit. We're gonna tighten up our grasp on the questions. We're gonna limit the remaining questions to anybody who has a question about the game or the College World Series itself, as much as we've enjoyed the draft talk, such as this one from Mr. Mark. With the lack of offense today, could Jay Johnson try and sneak Pearson in the lineup tomorrow for Fry or Stanfield? Maybe. It's going to be interesting tomorrow just because Jacob Morrison does not make things easy. And I think that, Pearson, I don't know that he's demanding a spot in the lineup at the moment, especially with some of his splits the way they are against right-handed pitching. Could I see him making a change? Maybe. But at the same time, I know that Jay Johnson's big on consistency when it comes to this time of year, and today's lineup got the job done. I don't actually think that Jay Johnson would tell you that today was a bad offensive day. He'd think that they just faced 2 really good pitchers. And, one thing a phrase that he uses that I like a lot is they try to keep themselves 1 run ready, which means that they want to be able to win games, even if it comes down to a single run. And the offense was able to provide that today. So was it flashy? No, but it certainly did get the job done. Is he going to make changes because of that? I'm not so sure about that. Paul for tomorrow, Anthony Iansson or Kase Evans tomorrow? Iansson. It'll be Iansson tomorrow. Kase Evans will be available out of the bullpen, barring something unforeseen. They haven't necessarily made an announcement yet on who will start, but I would be shocked if it is not Anthony Iansson. Let's see here from Hustle Out the Box. As far as Kade does, him simply being able to play in the College World Series and perform separate him from a guy like Arnold, or has simply stuff separated him as the number one left-handed pitcher in the draft? I'll answer that quickly. Performance matters a lot, Hustle Out the Box. And when you continue to perform this deep into the year, we actually talked about that on a previous episode of our show. If you can perform in Omaha, in this ballpark, you can make yourself money. And I think that Kade Anderson has done a lot to solidify his status as somebody who belongs at the top of the draft. As JJ said, almost an hour ago, it does matter that money saving could come into the picture. I don't think that this is a very clear-cut 1-1 year, but if you're just going to play the pure who's the most talented, who makes the most sense from a player that I'm getting, not the money conversation standpoint, yeah, I think that, he's done a lot to separate himself from a guy like Arnold here in Omaha. The stuff doesn't hurt either, although, Jamie Arnold's is nothing to slouch at as well. Let's go and see if we've got anybody else. From Nolan, he points out Anthony Iansson has 7 earned runs in his last 8 innings pitched. Does he bounce back versus Coastal? I like that question. Pete, go.
Yeah, I think he does. I think the last couple of starts for Anthony have kind of been anomalies and against the norm of what we've been accustomed to seeing from him. And, I don't know if he's going to deliver, 7 2/3 shutout like he did against Little Rock, a few weeks ago, but I think he's going to revert back to that, heart of SEC play form and turn in a quality start. And we've touched on it a bunch now, but I expect a big time bounce back performance from Iansson.
Agree. Matthew Boone says Brazwell gets a crucial hit tomorrow. I'm calling it. Okay, you hear that, everybody? All 138 of you who are watching this live. Matthew called it. So if he gets it wrong tomorrow, we'll have to talk about it on the broadcast. He's at least hoping for it. Want it for him so bad. He was amazing on defense tonight. I think that's awesome. So, it's good stuff. I agree that he deserves to have a good hit. Mr. Egg, I noticed a lot of mid-tier OPS numbers for Coastal, 800 to 900. Is that just platooning, or do they have more consistent guys that go against right-handed pitching? Broadly speaking, Mr. Egg, not necessarily Coastal's best year on offense. It's just kind of a lighter group in terms of their ability to do damage. Like I did say, though, lately they've been doing a really nice job of playing gap-to-gap baseball. And so those numbers aren't necessarily reflective of what they are in the College World Series. And I think that matters. Mark says, just wanted to say, been following Peter for a while on Twitter. Look at that, Pete. My favorite prospect-centric follow. Jacob, hello. Just found you. Thanks for the chat. Have a good night. Drop a follow. Send me a DM. I'll respond. Say hi.
Thanks so much, Mark. Appreciate it.
There you go. Pete has fans. Daryl says, anyone like the under tomorrow? Yes, I do. I haven't seen what it is yet. Tonight it was 8. And I absolutely, if we did the show before tonight's game and somebody said, do you like the under with the wind the way that it was? I would say yes. Just looking at the forecast, it looks like it'll be the same thing tomorrow. So depending on what that number is and whether or not Vegas decides to knock it down after what we saw today, I would tell you tentatively yes, but it's hard to say without having seen the line. I'm live on the show with you now and not looking at those, so I can't tell you. If you put it in here in the chat real quick, might be able to give you a bit of a more informed answer. Nolan, I think it's interesting.
We're opening up the gambling wormhole. This is real BA after dark.
I think it's interesting. The odds are way tighter at LSU -120 and Coastal at -110. I guess Vegas was underrating Fluki as well. Yeah, and also, Jacob Morrison does a lot to keep things tight if you're Vegas and you're looking at this game. Plus that wind, it makes things unpredictable. I mean, I saw multiple balls that were hit well today that got kept inside the yard, and that creates for some weirdness. Not a lot of room for errors, as we saw tonight. 1-0 ball game. One mistake, and that changes the entire complexion of the game. There were multiple innings, including the 4th and the 7th, in which Kade Anderson allows a leadoff base runner and strands him. If that run scores, we're not sitting here talking about it, a Kade Anderson complete game shutout. It's just a completely different game, and that's the very thin line that we existed on. I think those odds are very, reasonably fair for what we're seeing here in Omaha and the run scoring environment. Pete, I think that's going to do it for us. Nolan, wait 1 sec. Nolan clarified. Oh, that wasn't Nolan. Nolan clarifies. Those are the odds for Sunday. Yes, we were able to deduce that. Let's see here. Any other questions last second? Let's see. Boom, Matthew. Fluki was nice, but I can't believe how many pitches we watched that were balls kids dream to hit in those situations, especially with how good our offense is. I'm assuming, is LSU here. Matthew, let me clarify something here. One of the hardest places to hit on the planet in terms of pitch recognition and seeing it out of somebody's hand is this ballpark behind me at about 6 p.m. The shadows here are brutal. So what you see on TV that looks like a hittable pitch that might be grooved, in your opinion, right down the middle, it does not look like that here in this ballpark. It is super hard to pick up spin, especially. We watched Ty Floyd strike out 17 batters a couple years ago. We watched Gage Wood strike out 19 batters. A lot of hitters would tell you the shadows play funky. They make it hard for guys to play consistent here, and pitches look weird when the time of day starts to change. So while you're right that there were a couple grooved pitches tonight, the reason both offenses struggled in this one, in my opinion, is because of the time of day more than anything. Here's a comment that I like. Nolan, Jeff head behind home plate tomorrow with that face. I agree, Nolan. No further comment. I agree.
No comment.
I agree. Matthew says, that's fair. Never been to Omaha, so that makes sense. No problem. That's what we're here for. That's why we're having a conversation. It's very difficult to hit in this ballpark at about 6 p.m. And that we have now officially gotten through the comment section on this episode of the Baseball America College Baseball Podcast. We're coming up on the 1 hour mark. And so that's going to do it for us tonight on our show. Listen, I got a couple more things before we let you out of here, though. We want you to head on over to baseballamerica.com/college. Check out all of our written content. We have been posting a ton the last couple days. There's so much content going up on the site right now. And that has not just only to do with the College World Series. We're covering summer ball. We're covering the transfer portal. We're covering the draft, which is coming up here. We have a lot of great stuff coming from the MLB Draft Combine. Jesus Cano and Carlos Collazo were out there for Baseball America. They have a bunch of great stuff. There's some video stuff that's going to come from that. And then we have stuff on the minor league and professional side as well. Jacob Messiarowski, JJ gave him a shout out earlier in the show. Some interesting content on his spectacularness that we saw. So head on over there and tune back into our YouTube channel tomorrow night after the game 2 of the national championship. Win, lose, or draw for either team. We will be back here talking about the game live on YouTube roughly at the same time, depending on the pace of the game. But give us about an hour, and then we're going to be live on YouTube to answer your questions and talk college baseball. But for this episode of the Baseball America College Baseball Podcast, I'm Jacob Rudner. He's Peter Flaherty. We thank you all for coming on and listening and asking so many great questions tonight. We will see you tomorrow.